Hey everyone, my name is Mike Vaughn. I'm a writer at Geek Vibes Nation, and I'm also the author of The Ultimate Guide to Strange Cinema.
And I'm Dylan Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast.
And welcome to a new Video Attic new release roundup. As always, we have a lot of fun titles to talk about, but you are going to kick this party off. So
yes, I'm going to get it started. This week, I'm starting off with a film from Shout Factory and G Kids, and that is Summer Ghost. You know, I love my anime films. So this one, they call it a feature. It's kind of stretching the definition, but it is still worth your time. It's 40 minutes long, and it's from a director. His name is Loudon. He gave himself that moniker a while back, and I think he may be like a musician in Japan. I could be wrong. I just know it was like a big deal to some people that he was making a feature film. So this is, like I said, it's brief, but it's very impactful. The basic premises: there's a group of friends. There's like the legend of like the summer ghost who like will appear if you go out like searching for her. And these three friends go out to try to find this summer ghost, and no one really knows what like makes her appear. But while they're out there, they actually do stumble across her and see her. And what they realize is that she appears kind of when the people who are seeking her are kind of like going through like tough emotional times and stuff. Like this kind of deals with like issues of like suicidal ideation and like feelings of not belonging in the world and kind of things like that, like where each of the friends, unbeknownst to them, they're kind of going through kind of like tumultuous times in their lives. So through this, well, like one of them actually starts to like bond with the ghost girl, the summer ghost, and like kind of this is kind of like a brief exploration of the kind of their kind of like friendship dynamics, but also like their emotional issues and kind of the emotional issues of the ghost girl who kind of has her own little unfinished stuff on this plane. It's very sensitively done. I know it's kind of like some heavier issues that it's dealing with, but it's really impactful and like told in like a really beautiful manner, and the beautiful animation style complements it very nicely. There's like some instances of like beautiful watercolor backgrounds and other like really interesting animation style, and it's just like it's really gorgeous. I think they did a really nice job, especially since this is like a debut from like someone. He brought a lot of talented people on the project to make sure that it could be like the best version of it. So surround yourself with people who know what they're doing, and you can kind of like build something really great. So this is really a good film, and while it may be brief, the special features, there's like an hour and 19-minute like making of documentary on it, so that kind of makes it feel a little bit more beefy overall. like you're getting more for your money. So it really delves into kind of like every step of the creative process, which this was made during like pandemic time, so you'll see a bunch of people in masks and everything, which I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. So but you still get to see them collaborating and like discussing different story beats and like animation techniques and all that type of stuff. So it's really great. You also have another like 14-minute interview with the director, and then you can also have a version to watch the film in animatic form. So it's the full, it runs just slightly under the 40-minute runtime. It's like 38 minutes of animatics, so that you can kind of see where this started off as an idea, like rough sketches and animatics, and then kind of compare that mentally to what it was whenever you see the finished product. So, which is a really cool feature. I've seen some of those types of features like on previous animes, like The Wind Rises, like the Miyazaki film, and other films like that. It's really fun. So if you're an anime fan, Summer Ghost, it's really like a nice emotional time. It's not like high in action or anything, but if you like poignant like narratives, this is a really good one. I liked it quite a bit.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. That is one that I had never heard of, but sounds like it would be an interesting watch. So um my next one, I have to get my like pretend boxing gloves on, go a few rounds because this is the film noir Dark Side of Cinema Volume 10.
Mhm.
And as I eloquently hinted at, it is all boxing films.
Yes, this was teased on our last episode.
Yes. Which I like. I will say I got a little bit confused. This is a different Eddie Muller than the TCM guy. So
Hmm.
disclaimer, sorry about that.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I have come to realize that I'm not a big boxing fan, but I do really like boxing movies. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, but yeah, so I definitely did kind of enjoy all three of these films. So we'll take these out. Well, first of all, like here's the packaging again. And so, and these, all three of these do have commentary tracks, which is really nice. I'm a sucker for that. So, yeah, two of these are Tony Curtis boxing films. So we're getting very specific here.
Yeah.
So The Square Jungle is the first film, and this is from a new 2K master. It looks fantastic. The movie itself is pretty interesting. It is a very by the numbers melodrama about a boxer who kind of lets his pride and arrogance get him into some trouble. I don't really want to spoil what that trouble is, but something kind of drastic happens, and he kind of learns this lesson from his hubris. But I think what makes this movie really sizzle is the cast. Tony Curtis is great. And honestly, I can just watch anything he's in. I am so enamored with Tony Curtis. Like he was such a really fascinating actor. This has an amazing supporting cast: Ernest Borgnine, Jim Backus. You might not know the name right away, but he is the millionaire in Gilligan's Island.
Oh, of
And he
course.
was also James Dean's dad in Rebel Without a Cause. Probably pre-Gilligan, that was probably what he was most famous for. But yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a lighthearted romp, but it is really interesting. And again, it is a little bit by the numbers melodrama wise, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It's very breezy. It's only 86 minutes long, and it kind of goes by pretty quickly. Um, the movie also really looks great. George Robinson, who was the DP, filmed stuff like Son of Frankenstein. He did a bunch of Abbott and Costello films, I think some of which you covered. And probably most importantly, he photographed Francis the Talking Mule in a haunted house. The
The
pivotal,
classic.
uh, you know, that milestone in cinema. So it's got to be great. So my next one is Flesh and Fury, and um, that is very cringy. I'll get into it, but um, you seen this one yet?
I haven't delved into this set. I just polished off set number 9 this morning, so
Okay.
I haven't gotten to 10 yet.
So Tony Curtis plays a boxer in this again, but he plays a deaf boxer. So hunker down.
Yeah.
So this movie really has I had some mixed feelings on. I will say that this did movie, oh my God, wow, I cannot talk. This movie did bring awareness to certain aspects of the deaf community and more importantly, ASL. And I think that's a strong aspect of the film. However, it also I don't like its heart is in the right place, but the way it handles it is maybe clunky, especially by today's standards. It's interesting because like in my notes as I was watching it, I kind of wrote how it felt a little like it was what it was trying to do was what Sound of Metal did so much better,
Mhm.
like decades later.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is like there's a really good message of, oh, Tony Curtis, like he is just as capable as anybody else. Like he is overcoming his, the cards he was dealt. I don't know what a better way to put it, but like then he sort of gets a procedure done that sort of undercuts the message, but then it kind of flip flops a little bit. So I don't think that's too spoilery, but it's a little bit of a mixed message. I understand what they're going for, and I think again, I think the director's intention wasn't to make something that was ableist or like cringy. I just think we have a better handling of that material now. Like I said, Sound of Metal is a much better way to present this material. But it's kind of fascinating because again, I in such an early film, I can kind of see how they were dealing with that subject matter. So just be aware, it's a movie from the 50s. It's not to excuse it, but again, it does try to be respectful, I think. So, you know, take what you will from that.
Yeah,
So,
it sounds like you feel about that how I felt about Bright Victory about a month ago, about
mm,
the
mhm.
blind war veteran who came back and how they handled blindness. So it's kind of like another disability, but kind of similar. Like, they're trying. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and I am curious to see that one, but it's like again, you can tell like all their hearts are in the right place, and the fact that it did spread so much awareness about like American Sign Language and like lip reading and like I think we take for granted like that information like is so readily available, but in the 50s not really a lot of information. So I feel like that was probably pretty informative to a lot of people. The messaging is a little wonky, but it's fine.
yeah,
So finally, we got World in a Corner and or World in My Corner, sorry. Got a commentary track, and this might be my least favorite. And I will say that generally I liked all three of these films. So this is another sort of down on his luck fighter who, wanting to prove something to his rich girlfriend, starts getting into the seedier side of like fixed boxing. So this is another film with a romantic subplot, but this time it's fueled by overt class divide, which adds a meta text that I think is pretty interesting. And I will say that they fold this nicely into the plot and just the overall theme and like tone of the film.
mhm.
And I think that that's an aspect that makes it pretty compelling. Again, not very groundbreaking. It's very predictable. It's very much of his time. But I will say it is interesting to see how like class divide and things that we would more talk about today, how it was discussed in the context of like a sports film.
Mhm.
So I think that's pretty fascinating. And then the commentary track goes into a little bit more detail about that aspect, which I think is pretty fascinating. So yeah, this is a great set. I definitely think the last two sets have been some of my favorite in the series. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's saying something because really there hasn't been a set that I haven't enjoyed on some level. So yeah, it's pretty great. And I really do like when they sort of like theme a box set like this with boxing movies. I mean, if we would have had one more Tony Curtis movie, it would have been a Tony Curtis triple feature boxing films. Like you're getting very specific there, but two out of three ain't bad.
He had to have a third boxing film somewhere in
Right?
there that they could have thrown in. What are they thinking?
So close.
I'm switching gears a little bit to my first back-to-back MVD rewind titles. The first is Disturbing Behavior, which came out in the mid 90s. We got old James Marsden, Katie Holmes, and Nick Stahl here. This was previously released by Shout Factory, I believe, in like a 2-pack, which is out of print, and I do not have that. So we've had similar things like with Vampire's Kiss, where MVD will kind of save these out of print titles and bring them back into prominence. So here's a poster that comes with it. And this also has reversible cover art, which is cool. So got here. Nice orange red color scheme. So let me get this back in here. And then you have I'm not sure if I showed the disc art, but you have like the classic kind of throwback disc art, which I like that they use. This film, it's okay. I had some problems with it. But have you seen this one?
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan, but
it's kind of similar. It's like has shades of like Stepford Wives and like Invasion of the Body Snatchers and even a little bit of Clockwork Orange, but that could be getting a little spoilery. But I would just say the basic premise of this is in this small town, it's kind of like the youth are acting a little bit weird. Like there are they're like teenagers who are starting to act out of character, people who were like once kind of hooligans are suddenly turning into kind of upstanding individuals, and so it's just a little bit of like an eerie thing going on around town. And then James Marsden, he plays like a new kid in town who comes and is kind of witnessing like kind of the slow deterioration. But is it a deterioration if people are becoming better versions of themselves? Who knows? The secrets like behind why this is happening, I won't delve into. Obviously, I'll let audiences discover that if they want to. It's not groundbreaking in any particular way. My problems with this is like whenever these people start changing, they have like it starts to turn a little bit violent whenever there are elements introduced that kind of go against kind of their innate sense of newfound morality and like being good and being like kind of like perfect. But how this manifests in this narrative specifically is kind of problematic in that it's misogynistic, I think, because whenever guys are kind of like introduce like an element of like temptation or whatever, like sexual, like this is basically a film about trying to keep teens in line and stuff, and like kind of control their kind of base impulses. But what you need to learn is that teenagers, they all kind of go through like kind of these hormonal things, and they have to kind of go through these changes in order to like get through life and be like a better human being. But in this tale, like the guys, whenever they're introduced to like some like temptation or whatever, they kind of like act out in kind of violent ways that kind of puts the blame on the woman. And also there's often violence against women, especially like one of the first scenes is like a woman gets killed. But then whenever the women are kind of confronted with like a similar situation, like when they're kind of faced with their own like impure thoughts, they kind of turn the conflict inward, and like they blame themselves. So no matter what, it's like blaming the women on what is happening in this whole narrative. and it's just kind of ridiculous. If it was like more so everyone was taking personal responsibility and like going overboard on themselves, it would kind of make more sense. But since it's all kind of like really like testosterone driven and like based on like how what women are kind of injecting into society, it's like it's not the overwhelming point of the narrative, but it's just something I picked up on, and um that it's just kind of frustrating. There are some like interesting, like thrilling moments within it, but nothing in this movie is kind of really groundbreaking, and the performances are fine. I mean, it's just like compared to other 90s movies which like aren't great but are entertaining, like even like stuff with like Katie Holmes, like Teaching Mrs. Tingle is a much more like interesting, like, and it's not as more like paranormal or supernatural or anything like that, but it's like a really good 90s teen thriller. This one is just kind of, it has its issues, and I just, yeah. Did you want to comment on any of the narrative stuff before I dig into this technical stuff?
Um, yeah, it's I totally agree with your points. And probably would just add that it feels like it doesn't really have its own identity. As you say, it just kind of borrows and is grabbing from so many different things that it starts to feel very derivative. Like it doesn't really feel like it has its own unique sort of voice or spin on the material.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just it needed something to kind of have its own identity, like you said. Like there's just, it's not bringing anything new to the table, and then what is bringing to the table isn't even the best version of what it could be. So it's just kind of a frustrating watch in the end. So the transfer, I would assume it's not like a new transfer. I would assume it's pretty similar to the Shout Factory, it's just like slightly different encode, which Shout Factory isn't too bad with their encodes as it is. It's not like a Mill Creek situation, but it's basically you're just getting this film which looks okay. It still has some like age to it, which I think is just the source. But it looks fine. It sounds pretty good. It has some special features. It has some deleted scenes and a director commentary, which I haven't listened to the director commentary yet. I will before I do my written review. But there are some special features. So if you want something in like nice packaging, poster, a few special features, if you hold this like a soft, don't let us deter you with our kind of like negative, like mostly negative assessment, but like it's here. It's a good release. It's just I had issues with the narrative, which just kind of bugged me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's good if you want to sort of complete that sort of 90s post-Scream wave of horror movies. You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice that this did get a re-release because I do know that copies of the Scream Factory release were going for quite a lot of money. So um so I know you are going to be doing like a really great unboxing video, but I just got the Columbia Classics Volume 3. And
Yay.
again, you'll go into more detail, but I'll just give you a quick peek. And then there's a booklet up here. So I'm going to be covering just 2 films this week and hopefully the rest of them next week. But before I do, what do you think of the selection? What do you think of the movies that are?
I haven't been disappointed with any of the Columbia Classic sets yet. Sometimes there's movies in there that I wouldn't have thought of on first glance, but then I'm like, once they're there, I'm like, that's interesting. They like, it kind of forces me. I know a lot of people don't like to be forced, but it kind of forces me to kind of examine some movies that I might have not had first on my list. But usually when I check them out, especially with these new 4K presentations, I'm usually like, okay, I'm digging this. So they have some classics, they have some like sentimental favorites, and they have like some more modern things that I know people like have a really deep affection for. So I think overall it's a nice array of things.
Yeah, I will say I think the one that's going to be really challenging for me is Annie.
Mm, yeah.
But listen, I don't auto hate on musicals. So we'll see.
People love it though. That's what I said. It's a sentimental favorite for a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Well, and I'm really excited because I do love Carol Burnett. Um, so that's what I'm clinging to here with that one. But that's not what I'm covering
Yeah.
today. Today it's as good as it gets.
Mm. Today's as
Um,
good as it gets.
as good as it gets. That's the motto of this episode. But no, so this is a movie that I've kind of actively avoided in my life. Um,
Mhm.
just because I've seen a little bit of it, and like the Jack Nicholson plays this. I mean, everybody probably kind of knows this movie, but he plays this like really grumpy, curmudgeon-y guy named Melvin who has OCD pretty badly. It's sort of hinted at some trauma that may have caused this, but it's a rom-com. But Melvin is very homophobic to his neighbor. He's every ist you can think of. I won't, of course, say the things he says, but it's very awful. You can use your imagination. But anyways, oh boy, yeah, hunker down because of course you have, to get a good arc, you have to see somebody at their worst. And they do sort of go out of their way to make him like look foolish and idiotic, and it's not just gay people that he has a problem with. It's again, he's every ist there is. But you do kind of see how like he becomes a little bit softer and more accepting and maybe not completely lovable and likable towards the end, but he gets there. Like there's a really great moment that I think kind of makes it worth it, where it's a really actually this movie's pretty light for the most part, but there is a pretty disturbing scene where I believe it's Ski Ulrich and Jamie Kennedy. They have a little oh my God, I cannot talk. They have a little Scream reunion
Mhm.
where they like beat him up while they're robbing him, and again, it's not super graphic, but it's very disturbing because I know stuff like this really happens, and even worse than that. So it's not gratuitous though, and it's sort of um kicks off the rest of the plot. But I like how the gay character is not just like a punching bag or a joke. They do, I think, do a pretty good job of like making him a complete character. Cuba Gooding Jr.'s in this. The cast is really great. I think one of the things that really makes this film is like Jack Nicholson, Greg Kinnear, Helen Hunt. They all have this amazing chemistry together, and they all kind of have their own moments to like shine individually, but then they're all clicking really well together. So it didn't need to be almost 2.5 hours long.
Mm. Yeah.
But it was enjoyable. It is something that I probably even would watch again. It's certainly one of those, as you say, it sort of forces you to maybe go outside your comfort zone a little bit, but I was glad I did. But I saved the best for last, and that is The Last Picture Show. And that is, of
Mhm.
course, Peter Bogdanovich, and has an amazing cast. It's won 2 Oscars. Cloris Leachman won a much deserved Oscar for this. And now this is one that, shame on me, I had not seen before. Have you seen this?
Mm-mm. Now I have like the Criterion set with it in it, and I shamefully have not like gotten
Yeah,
into it yet.
it is so good. It is one of the most gritty, unapologetic, unflinching look at like rural life in the 50s. Like it goes for it. I mean, there's like nudity, there's some kind of sort of male nudity in it, which is kind of surprising. There's a pool scene that doing some research, like evidently like the censors like lost their mind because it was a bunch of like, I say teenagers, but they were probably in their 20s, like movie teenagers are like 20s, 30s. But anyways, like
Yeah.
everybody's like completely naked, and like in 1971, even though I believe the Hays Code was already completely dissolved by then, like they didn't know what to make of this, because I mean it is very frank. They talk about um just lots of stuff I won't get into, but it's like they're not afraid to go places with it.
Mhm.
But it is just a beautiful journey. I mean, this is a movie where, you know, it is 2 hours long, but it's a little over 2 hours long. So there's a director's cut and then there's a theatrical cut. Both are included, and I'll show you. Actually, I should do that for the other one too. But so yeah, so this is double stacked. While I'm thinking about it, so there is two 4K discs. There's actually the theatrical and a director's cut, and as I say, they are double stacked in here. Which isn't my favorite, and you have to be super super careful with 4K discs because they're pretty notoriously
Mhm.
like easily like damaged. But we do have a Blu-ray of just the director's cut, and I believe there isn't anything new besides the 4K stuff. I believe this is all legacy features, which is really good. Like there is a ton of really great stuff on here. But the movie's fantastic. It looks really great. I had never seen it before, but just there's really no artifacts. There's no like heavy grain. Everything looks very clean and polished. Like the blacks are very deep. There's definitely like some like night scenes that really I think do probably like pop really nicely. Again, I haven't seen this in another format before, but yeah, it's great. It's I think pretty much flawless, and the same goes with as good as it gets. The only kind of note that I wrote down, and here's a better look at this, is there's a little blurring at times, but I don't necessarily blame like Sony for that. I think it's just more of like what they were working with film elements wise. But honestly, it's like if you weren't looking for it, you really wouldn't probably notice. So yeah, really fantastic. It's going to be interesting seeing some of these I have seen before. What are you most looking forward to in this set?
Probably digging into From Here to Eternity, because that's one that's always been on like my bucket list of movies I need to catch. So to finally be able to catch it in 4K, I'm really excited.
It happened one night, I think is like there's a ton of great stuff on this, but like that I think is the crown jewel in my opinion. Have you seen that one?
Oh no.
Oh, you're gonna like that. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. Speaking of like the Last Picture Show, I was listening to a podcast over the summer from TCM that was
Mm-hmm.
like about Peter Bogdanovich and his life. So it got me really interested to check out more of his stuff. So now that this is here, and I was going to watch the Last Picture Show, and then they announced this 4K, and I was like, I guess might as well wait a few months to catch it now. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect timing. And gosh, I completely understand why people go like crazy for these Columbia sets. They are absolutely gorgeous. So,
Yeah, keep them coming. I want them every year. Let's do it. Following up on my last NBD Rewind collection with this new one, which I like this film a lot better, and that is At Close Range with Sean Penn and Christopher Walken, which shamefully is another movie I owned previously but had not seen. So this just kind of forced me to finally get around to watching this. I had the Twilight Time disc, which is now out of print. And I'm pretty sure they kind of just reuse that transfer and some of the extras. But I mean, for people who, unlike me, who did not get it when it was in print, they can now own this movie. And I think it is a movie worth owning. This is a really tough movie to watch sometimes, which I'll get into in a second. That was the reverse art, and here is the poster, the foldable poster. It's the same as the slipcover, but there we go. Um, so this film, uh, Sean Penn plays the son of this criminal who has just recently kind of come back into his life. He's kind of, Christopher Walken is like a man about town who kind of like can get things done, but it's just kind of like the type of person who's like, oh, like, yeah, this fell off a truck, like that type of person. And it starts out with like Sean's character really kind of like starting to idolize him as he gets to know him, and he's really interested in like the life that he is living. And he's also at the same time kind of starting like a new romance with a young girl played by Mary Stuart Masterson, which there's some iffy things there because she's playing a 16-year-old, and anyway, but I think he's probably supposed to be 18, so it is what it is. But throughout the course, it's kind of like one thing I do want to know. In the movie, Sean has a brother who is played by his real life brother, Chris Penn, which is a fun bit of casting. I like whenever they play real life brothers. But just seeing Sean's character go on this journey with his father, kind of getting a little bit into the business, getting his friends a little bit into the business, and just that whole thing, which his friend group is wild because there's a lot of like people you would like definitely know. Like he has like a young Kiefer Sutherland, there's a young Crispin Glover, there's a young who's I know you'll know this, who's the character in Fright Night who plays his best friend who turns?
Oh yeah. Oh, darn it. I can't think of his name, but I can picture him.
Yeah. So he is in the friend group as well. So there's like a who's who of this friend group. But they all kind of start getting into this criminal life, and it kind of starts to go sideways near the end, and it kind of shows the brutality of is blood really thicker than water, and like what will a person give up to kind of maintain his power? Will he sacrifice his family in order to stay in power? And that kind of push and pull of like a father and son. Like I said, it's really tough. It's a really brutal movie, but it is very compelling throughout the whole runtime. It's just shy of 2 hours, but it held my attention throughout. Sean gives a really great early performance. Christopher Walken, I know in like the past couple of decades, save for like a role here and there, he's kind of become almost like a punchline or a parody. He's still great, but he's just kind of come and does his like Christopher Walken thing. But I love seeing like this earlier like Christopher Walken we all fell in love with from like The Deer Hunter and like The King of New York and all of that type of stuff. He is so great in this role. Like he is very menacing. He's like chilling in this role, and I really think he does a great job. Did you have an update on that actor name?
Oh yeah, his name is Stephen Jeffries.
Okay, yeah, he is in this friend group, which I was like, I just saw Fright Night. This is so like it's all coming together. So I really like this movie. It's very impactful. This Blu-ray, it's a good Blu-ray. It's like I said, it's the same. Pretty sure it's the same master that Twilight Time used. It's in pretty good shape. There's some like little deficits here and there, like a little bit like some milky black levels, a little bit, some nicks and scratches here and there, but overall, it's a really solid transfer overall. And this does come with another director audio commentary moderated by Twilight Time founder Nick Redman. So there is at least that. There are no other special features, but at least it has a commentary track. So if you haven't seen this, or if you missed out the first time, I recommend At Close Range. It's a really just tough, really good drama.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds really really interesting. It was funny when you said that name. I don't know why Steven Dorff was coming to mind. So I was like right with the Steven part, but
Yeah.
yeah, no, he's a fun character actor. I always like when as you say, you see like some recognizable faces in there. Speaking of recognizable, I got two stone cold classics from Universal on 4K. So first we're gonna get into ET.
Nice.
So first of all, look at this gorgeous packaging.
Hmm.
I mean, I guess you can kind of see how it's like raised with
Yeah.
the ET guy. So here are the extras. There is a new feature here. And then this did port over the legacy stuff from the last couple releases. And I was actually really curious if they were going to have the 2002 20th anniversary edition, which had like some like famously had the guns swapped out for walkie-talkies and stuff.
Mhm.
That, as far as I can tell, I looked all through this and it's not on there. But
Mhm.
I think that would have been interesting just as a completist if you like to have that option. But I mean, most people would just probably watch the how it was originally intended anyways. So
Mhm.
here's the inside. Now this will have a digital copy that's not in there now. And yeah, gosh, I have to say that I'm the resident cynic here. Like I am, it's true. I don't mind heartwarming. I just my tolerance for like overly sentimental stuff is a little bit but
Mhm.
I will say, gosh, even though this does sort of tip its hat into maybe being a little bit over sentimental, it's beautifully made. I mean, you cannot deny how well crafted this movie is just on every level. Like it is so smartly designed just from every single standpoint you can think of in a film. It really is kind of textbook. I mean, there's a reason why everybody copies Spielberg's style or magic. So yeah, it is a pretty fantastic film. I mean, again, I like my aliens a little bit more Ridley of the Ridley Scott variety, but listen, you all like there's times when I just want something that's a little sappy and hokey and fun, and that's definitely all of these things. I really appreciate that this release is stacked, and it looks great. Like I have no doubt that this probably took a ton of time and a ton of money and a ton of supervision to get the look and the feel just right. I mean, there's a lot of scenes that are like warm and like inviting, like in the house, like Elliot's house, that I could really see was just beautifully done. Like the contrasts are great. Again, colors pop when they need to, but never gets oversaturated or muted. I mean, it's just beautifully handled. Like it's been a little while since I've seen this, and I've never seen it in 4K. There was a earlier 4K a couple years ago, and I missed out on that one. But this is my first time watching it in 4K Ultra, and wow, it's really stunning looking. Like if you have only had this on DVD, Blu-ray, I don't know if this is the same transfer as the old Blu-ray or gosh, sorry, old 4K, but as I said, this does have a few new things. So if that's something that entices you to double dip, I don't know, but yeah, there it is. Now, my next one is very different. To Kill a Mockingbird.
Mhm.
Um, and so here's the back. And I believe that there is nothing new on this besides the 4K. I believe this is all just the legacy features and slipcover. And here is the discs. And just like the other one, this has a digital copy that's just not in there now, but it will be in yours.
Mhm.
So yeah, this was an interesting one to revisit. This is like based on the book that everybody kind of had to read in school.
Yeah.
It's like so beyond famous. And it's regarded as a classic, and I think rightly so. I mean, I think it's one of those few books that really eloquently captures the flavor and the essence of the novel in a really great way to the screen. The casting is perfect. Gregory Peck, oh my gosh, he gives probably the best acting of his entire career for this movie as Atticus Finch. Just look at him.
It's a man right there.
I mean, my goodness. I was like looking at this and I'm like, am I like having a Gregory Peck thirst over here? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but anyways, the movie is very, of course, serious, and it deals with a lot of like heavy, very harrowing subjects, and of course, like racism in the South, and I think the intention wasn't to do something that was like a white savior narrative, although you can certainly have a valid contemporary reading of it as such. And I don't necessarily think that it was a malicious thing. I don't think that that's what the movie was kind of going for, but I do think it's worth kind of mentioning. And if you kind of read it in that way, I think that's completely valid, but I don't think that that was the intention, and I think it's a great movie. I think the book is a classic for a reason. And yeah, this looks fantastic. Again, this is something that I've never seen in 4K Ultra, and it's black and white, looks pristine. Again, the black and white contrasts are really beautifully done. Just like there's a lot of details that just pop. Like you can just see the texture of people's like clothing. It's like that detailed. It kind of blows my mind what they can do with like 4K like releases now. And again, this is really stacked. I think I've only ever had this on DVD, so this is really exciting. They did a fantastic job. Gosh, it's such a great movie. Has it aged completely well? Not really, but I mean, is the message kind of timely? And I think the message that they were trying to go for is a worthwhile one.
Absolutely, yeah. I likewise only had that one on DVD, so I'm really excited to check this out on 4K. I've only seen it a couple times back when I first bought it, but I really remember enjoying this one.
Yeah.
My next one will be of particular interest to horror fans and genre fans at large. This is the Wild Eye releasing documentary of Smoke and Mirrors, the story of Tom Savini, the special effects master, among other things. He's director, actor, just all around, just seems to be an awesome dude. He This gives like a really awesome overview of his life, and not just his career, his life at large. I will kind of show this off real quick. So you see the disc art here, and then there's some background, like a still photo that you can kind of see here. Of course, the poster slid out, so I have to bend down to get it. But it does come with a foldable poster. And now I've lost the slipcover. It's all going well.
It's as good as it gets.
Yes. So here's the foldable poster. And then you also included is this little kind of postcard, or not postcard, but like little slip that kind of like talks like up the movie a little bit. It just kind of like tells like who's in it and stuff. And then it kind of on the back, it has like this little picture. So that's a little thing. I'm holding on to it. It's not the type of thing I'd want to dispatch of. So this film, like I said, it kind of takes a broad overview. It's kind of, I like how it kind of leans into the genre elements, because it's kind of framed as almost like a drive-in feature, or kind of with like a like a weird host and like a 1950s feel, like which kind of like evokes kind of the type of movies that he worked on. It kind of takes you from his younger years and then like his time in the army as a photographer, and then just kind of like his early kind of special effects work, and then through many of his notable achievements. So with like all of his work with George A. Romero, his work on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Friday the 13th. There are so many classic movies that he's worked on, and he's one of the people, like he's one of the handful of people that I kind of feel really helped shape the horror genre as we know it today. And just especially his work with Romero, like that chunk of the movie is so fascinating just to see their working dynamic, and you get a lot of like great insights from people who worked from him, like Romero. There are people like Alice Cooper weigh in. There are who else? Tony Todd, Greg Nicotero, Tom Atkins, Robert Rodriguez, who famously included him in From Dusk Till Dawn in one of his like most famous on-screen roles. It's a really wild role, which I love. Just overall, if you're a Tom Savini fan, I mean, if you're like a fanatic, you may have heard a lot of these stories before. You probably know a lot about him. But I think this is also enhanced by the fact that you get a lot of Tom's personal footage that like hasn't been seen elsewhere, like footage like that he shot right from his like that were shot on his behalf from his childhood, and like that he shot of his like early test makeup and everything like that. Which also that like leads into comment like there are over 4 hours of special features here, including a lot of extra like home footage that he shot. That just hour and hours of like makeup tests, and there's like an audio commentary with Savini and director Jason Baker. It's just packed with special features that kind of like, even along with the movie itself, gives like a really well-rounded overview of Tom Savini. So if you're a fan, this is like a nice presentation. It's about 90 minutes, so it's very breezy. It packs a lot into this 90 minutes. There's probably, if you watch this, there'll probably be elements where you're like, I wish I would have touched on this a little bit more. But for like a whole life overview, I think it does a really great job. And this is a really great release. So I recommend that for any horror fans. Are you a Savini fan?
Yes, I really like his work. He's certainly not the warmest person to meet. I have heard varying stories of how he can be sometimes, but he was always very cordial when I met him. So yeah, I definitely like, I mean, yeah, I completely agree that he definitely was somebody that definitely shaped the genre in a very profound way. So yeah, I definitely want to check that out. And my last sort of like pairing is two Kino Studio classics on 4K. And one of these I am a huge fan of. The other one I have seen just this first time. This one. So yeah, so I want to start with the usual suspects, and there's Kevin Spacey in a lineup, which is something that is kind of a real thing. But anyways,
true to life.
Yeah. So slipcover, of course, if you want the slipcover, you want to get it quickly. Here is the inside of the disc, or the discs are in here. And yeah, so it's so funny because I watched this with my husband, and so I already kind of had the famous twist kind of spoiled for me, but he guessed it within the first like 15 minutes.
Interesting.
So yeah. And I will say that they do a pretty good job of like misdirecting, but yeah, it's pretty interesting. I was engaged, but it didn't really connect with me. I know this is I since learned that this is a movie you either really love and you connect with it, or you just kind of don't. There's not a whole lot of middle ground. I think it's just a little bit overly complicated, and I don't know. Like I it's not the movie's fault, but just watching anything with Kevin Spacey just hits a little bit differently now. And I know there was some allegations with Bryan Singer as well. So again, I don't know if those are just allegations or not, but anyways, that's what they say. So anyways, that being said, I do see why people like it. The cast works extremely well together. Bryan Singer's usual sort of bombastic style is in sort of full effect here. Sometimes it's a little bit style over substance. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I do sort of like that it's a little overly stylized at times. And again, um, it does really just the centerpiece of the film is that big reveal. So if you kind of know that going into it, you might be a little bit disappointed. I was trying to see if this had a alternate cover and it does not. So yeah, it's fine. Don't listen to me. This has a big cult following, so there are people that really love it. If you do love it, that it is a heck of a nice transfer. It really just, again, this is another film from Kino Studio Classics that was color graded. The color grading was approved by the cinematographer, and of course, there is like a really, I mean, it looks fantastic. I mean, the colors do pop. It is not the most visually stunning movie, but it is I mean, there is a lot of like really great like a visual style that again pops really well here. Like colors again aren't really muted. They do kind of pop. It's not again the most beautiful looking film, but it really like I can see why people are kind of praising this 4K transfer because it does look really fantastic. So usual suspects, pick it up. I mean, it is pretty stacked. And I think the commentary tracks were always great. I think it was kind of worth watching it a second time for the director's commentary. And one of my personal favorites, the Brian De Palma Dress to Kill, or Dress to Kill, geez. And I mean, gosh, look at that array of features. Now, you might be wondering like what the difference between this and the Criterion version of this. So I have that here, and I just wanted to show you like what some of the features are on that. You know, Criterion never really shares their features, so like you're not going to get the stuff that's on here. But on the flip side of that, there's definitely some nice stuff that you know is I think exclusive to this set. So yeah, and then I kind of had to show this off, and yeah, so it's a great movie. It there's a problematic element to it that it's hard to mention without spoiling it, so I won't. I'll just say that um, the sensibilities back then were different, and I don't use that as an excuse, but um, I think the theme of this episode is creator intent, and I never felt like Brian De Palma was trying to do anything reductive or harmful. That being said, it's not. I'm trying. It's so hard because I'm not trying to excuse it, but to me, like I'm a queer person that likes it and doesn't apologize for it. But I understand if tastes vary, and again, it's hard to talk about it without spoiling it, and I won't. But just keep that in mind. But anyways, I think this is the closest thing we get to a true American giallo. We were talking a little bit about that on what were we talking about?
The Eyes of Laura Mars.
Yes.
Yeah.
That also is a like an American giallo, but I think that this is a much better representation of that. That, and of course, I'll always, want to mention Alice, Sweet Alice, because that movie rolls. But anyways, this movie starts out with this steamy shower scene. Again, a little like Psycho. Brian De Palma loved his Hitchcock motifs and borrowing from Hitchcock. But yeah, and I get to say, even as like somebody that's not necessarily attracted to women, like that is such a hot scene with like Angie Dickinson in it. And yeah, so anyways, this is just a steamy thriller, and it's, oh gosh, it's so good. It's like Nancy Allen is like, this is maybe one of my favorite movies. And that's actually her signature right there. I met her and she was really nice. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Again, there are elements that haven't aged well, but yeah. Um this looks great. Again, I've seen different transfers like these, and I think that this is by far the best. Now, this is a visually striking movie, and they certainly don't like really overwork it. I mean, they do like some color grading and some like just to make things pop a little bit more, but again, it feels like they really were mindful of like not blowing certain things out of proportion color wise. I mean, again, everything has a nice natural look and contrast. um there's really no like heavy grain. Like just it's just one of the most it's really stunning. Like I said, hands down, it's the best that Dress to Kill has looked. And I feel like I might even have like a DVD copy of this somewhere. I've probably owned it on every single thing it's ever been on. But yeah, if you're a fan, it's this is sort of like on my short list of stuff that is like a must own from this year. I want to put this out there. I really want Body Double. I know, yes, it has been out on Blu-ray from Twilight Time, but that's out of print. I want something new. I want a 4K. I'm greedy. I want that. I'm like putting it out in the universe that we get that next year. So make it happen, somebody. I don't, preferably Kino, but just anybody. Gosh, that I think that would you could easily do Body Double as like a Criterion release. Now, have you seen you've seen Dress to Kill, right?
No.
Oh man, you're missing out.
I mean, now that we have the 4K, it'll happen.
Yeah, no, I'm really curious to see what you think of the film, what you think of the twist. Michael Caine, God, he's amazing. This cast is just fantastic. So yeah.
I'll have to report back. Keeping with the Kino, I am going to discuss The Blue Iguana, which is from 1988. It stars Dylan McDermott and a colorful array of people. This does have different artwork underneath here. So yeah. So if you want the fun slipcover that's like all animated and stuff, buy early. Unless you just want to just deal with this, I guess you can wait for a sale or something.
That is a spicy cover.
Yeah, a little action going on, little hot heat. So just standard interior. This film, it's okay. It kind of disappointed me. It's basically trying to be like a send up of like kind of like the film noir kind of genre, but it's not like overtly funny. Unfortunately, like there are funny moments throughout, but it never really had me like laughing out loud, and it plays stuff sometimes a little bit too seriously that I'm just like, oh, this is just kind of a not amazing version of this, but then like there are enough jokes in there that like it is a kind of like a satire. It's just not, I don't know, not to my taste. It just like maybe other people would watch it and find it hilarious. I was just like, oh, this is okay. The basic premise of this is Dylan McDermott plays like someone who is known to like, he's kind of like a fixer almost, like he can get things done. And he is like tasked by these IRS agents to go retrieve this money from this Mexican bank that is like has some money that they are in need of. It's like, I don't know, I kind of was a little bit lost in the plot of like why he was there, but I just know he basically goes down to this Mexican town with the titular Blue Iguana club and kind of plays like kind of like puppet master with all these different figures of just like kind of manipulating one person to kind of turn on another person, and then just like machinations here and there, and then there's like some romance and double crosses and all that type of stuff. It's entertaining, I will say that. It's just not an amazing film. I was looking up reviews to see how it was like received when it was first released. Roger Ebert hated this movie. He gave it like a half a star, which I think is a little like too rough on it. Like the things he said about it, he's just like, why was this movie made? This movie didn't like should not exist. I was like, that okay. Like tell me how you really feel, Roger. It's not a great movie. It's like just like a simple kind of entertaining enough watch, but it doesn't live up to its premise, and it doesn't provide enough laughs for me. But the performances are fine. They're a little erratic from character to character. I think basically the shortcomings are within the script. One performance I really did like, because it's just so bizarre, is Tova Feldsha, who we've mentioned a couple of times. She played in that Attack from the Sky or whatever, that TV movie about bees we talked about a few months ago. She plays like this IRS agent, but she's like kind of ripped oddly, and like constantly like working out and stuff, and it's weird. And then like Dean Stockwell plays her like assistant, and he has like these big like glasses on, and kind of plays like a just a person who's kind of like flipping out all the time and just being like a real weirdo. So there's like some really interesting character performances in this. It's just like the script overall, I think, just needed some fine tuning to really just like nail the parody aspects of it. It just didn't quite get there for me. So it's on a scale from like 1 to 5, I give this like 2.5 maybe. So it's okay. It's not irredeemable or anything. This comes from their Paramount deal with, between Kino and Paramount. This is actually not a new master from what I can tell. It seems to be like an older master, and it does kind of have like a little bit of like age and like wear to it. It's kind of similar to some Paramount in the past couple of years have been digging into their vault, and sometimes they'll just release like a catalog title that just like that's like that has a decent HD transfer, but like they don't think it's like big enough to remaster, so they just kind of put it out instead of like doing like a Paramount Presents. It's kind of a similar thing, but they put it out with a specialty label. There are no special features, oddly. There are no like commentaries, which usually Kino seems to do. It's just like a trailer. So you have to want the movie for this. I mean, the slipcover is doing the heavy lifting with this release right now, but it's okay. It's a decent release.
Yeah, that's funny. I think when I heard that, I think of Night of the Iguana, and I assume that it probably is nowhere near as good as that one.
No.
Yeah. Which oddly enough is has been announced for December for our archive. But anyways, yeah, cool. No, it the cover certainly did catch my eye, but I wasn't enticed, I guess, outside of that. But
yeah,
sounds like I maybe dodged a little bit of a bullet there. So
yeah, you should find it streaming somewhere and just check it out and see what you think of it.
Do a try before you buy. That's always good.
Yeah.
So my next title is Mortal Kombat Snowblind, and this is part of their Legends series. So really nice cover. We got a lot of stuff going on there. Like it kind of looks like an S&M party going on. But anyway, slipcover. Now this does have a digital copy that's not in here, and there's the discs. And yeah, so this is a series that I came a little bit late to, but I'm pretty fascinated. Like Mortal Kombat actually weirdly has a rich lore that is explored in the games. And that's something I was kind of completely ignorant to. Like I just didn't realize that for like a lot of time, but it is really interesting, like dipping into like the again the lore of the games and then in the spin-off movies. Yeah, so this is the, I believe, second film in the Legends series.
The third.
Oh, this is the third. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. And it kicks off with this massacre on this small village by the Black Dragon clan. And I think this is a really great scene because it just gets you right into the action, and like holy crap, it is just like a like massacre in like every sort of imaginable way. Like
Mhm.
it almost kind of reminded me of like the Castlevania anime a little bit.
Mhm, mhm.
Like it's not quite as good like animation wise, but it very much is that sort of like grim, gritty tone. Certainly not for kids.
Yeah. Mhm,
So I like how, this really expands the world and does have a lot of top-notch animation. I think if you just jump right into this, I don't think you'd be too lost. Like it does a good job of sort of catching you up with like where everybody's at, like who the characters are. I mean, of course, there's a lot of like moments that are not going to have the same impact if you don't really understand like where these characters have been. But I still think that again, it does do a good job at assuming you haven't seen the others in the series. Well, I mean, I didn't even know which one this was in the series, so I'm not an expert.
yeah.
um, and now there is going to be a next one next year, cage match, which I'm
Oh,
really looking forward to. So again, if you're kind of new to this, I wouldn't suggest jumping in, but if you do go in blind or snowblind, as it were, I don't think that you wouldn't really get. I mean, it's really not that deep. But
yeah.
it is fun. And I mean the action sequences are great. I mean, I was like really impressed with like this was like true with the previous one, which was Scorpion's Revenge.
That was the first one. There was one in between that. I think it's like Battle of the Realms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyway. Yeah, see, I'm clearly not an expert on these, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's I do like just they go really hard. I mean, and that makes sense because the games were very controversial because of that reason. I will say it like doesn't have that sense of humor that the games have. Like the games did have like a really irreverent sense of humor, but anyways, this has a commentary track. This does have a lot of really great featurettes, and I think it definitely like helps you appreciate the like world and the world building a little bit more. So yeah, I liked it. I think it's a cool series. I mean, obviously I think I'm missing one, so that's why like my whole thing is off. But um, I think I need to just like go back and maybe like marathon these because they are pretty cool of what I've seen.
Yeah, I enjoyed that they went towards an animated format for this series, especially because the latest live action one was not my favorite movie. It was kind of all over the place, but these animated films that, while not perfect, they've really been kind of hitting more of that sweet spot that I want from Mortal Kombat. And I do like that they don't sanitize it. They really go all out on the brutality and they just go for it. So kudos for them for that, at least. My next one, it's a little bit of a departure for our show. We usually handle new releases, but I felt that it was important to kind of highlight this one particular release that came out, I think it was last year, maybe the year before. And this is Blood Quantum. And there's a very specific reason I am talking about this. Unfortunately, just a few weeks ago, the director, Jeff Barnaby, he passed away from cancer, like after a year-long battle of cancer. And I thought this would maybe be like a good time to kind of like reflect on like his work and just like kind of bring attention to this really great kind of awesome film that was, it's a Shudder original from a couple years ago. And what really makes this like a unique film is it's from an indigenous point of view. He was an indigenous filmmaker. And basically, he brought a lot of representation to the indigenous community, which is kind of sadly lacking in most mainstream media. So this is kind of a zombie film, kind of like a virus film. This is about a community, there's like a zombie plague out and about, which conveniently or whatever, for a reason, the indigenous community are immune to it. But just like on a basic level, so they're kind of held up in like this barrier structure, so like because they can still like be harmed by like bites and stuff, but it's kind of like they're living kind of like in a post-apocalyptic almost community because they're kind of cut off from the world. There are all these like zombies roaming the countryside. There are people that are trying to come into their community for safety, and they're not really sure whether they can trust certain people. So there's like a breakdown in like societal like trust in one another and that type of thing. And it's just like a really rich movie that's like led by this really strong performance by Michael Greyeyes, who is probably one of the most prominent actors from that community. He's been in a lot of great work, but he does such a good job in this. It's a really intense movie. It's a really like effective movie. There's a lot of great kills and blood and gore, and it's just so refreshing to have this from like a unique point of view, which sadly now we have lost all too young. He was like in his early 40s. But this was a really critically acclaimed, like Rotten Tomatoes, like people love this film, and I love this film. I think it's really great, and I wanted to bring this back into the public consciousness. There are not any special features in this, but it has a great transfer, and it's like good. Like when this is released, it'll be just after Halloween. But if you're still kind of feeling that kind of like spooky, I mean, horror is all around for like a lot of our audience, so like go for it. But like Blood Quantum, it's a really great film. You can get the Blu-ray or it is on Shudder. Like I said, it's a Shudder film, but it's worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, that's something that kind of wasn't on my radar, but I think I definitely want to check that out like as soon as possible. And my final title is also horror. I think we planned that really well. And that is The Invitation.
Oh, nice.
And whoa boy, this was something. All right, so slipcover, and there's a better like shot of like the features. I will say that I do really appreciate the fact that like Sony just didn't dump this out, that they did put some like attention and like care on the release with some features. No reversible art, but there's the disc. This also has a bloopers, and that's like one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
But yeah, so gosh, I had so many things to say about this movie, but I'll try to keep it brief. So I try to not really look at like the critical discourse until after I like watched it, like took a bunch of notes. And it's interesting because I didn't hate it like the critics do. Like this really got a sound beating by the critics, but I think it's fun. I certainly understand the problems, but I'll get into that. But anyways, I was really excited to check this out, and it is a modern like retelling of like the Dracula mythos. And yeah, I really like, again, I understand the complaints. The movie is a slow burn that takes a while to get where it's going. And at that point, I think when they finally get to that place, it's hard not to be a little bit checked out at that point. But it's not to say that there isn't like interesting things going on. It's just it doesn't really like kick into full gear until like the middle part. But if you can kind of hang with it, I think it actually gets better. But yeah, the commentary on class and race is not subtle. It actually feels like very overt and bluntly to the point. But it never really came off as quite of a lecture. So I appreciated that. But you know, it is just shallow talking points rather than exploring them in any real sort of meaningful way. But it also is hard for me to hate this movie because it was a lot of fun. I could see where they were going with it. There's a ton of Easter eggs of like past Dracula movies and like characters, and of course like little nods to the novel, which is also like very long and not to the point. But yeah, so again, it's not perfect, but like the finale, like the coda that they put on that movie is so good. Like at the end I was like, "Oh my gosh, where was this for the rest of the movie?" And I want a sequel or a series, or I won't spoil it, but like that ending is just kind of everything for me. So this had to, like I said, this does have some nice features. I really would have loved a commentary track, but I like outtakes and bloopers. So I'm a simple person. So you know,
Did you watch the unrated cut?
I that's the one I watched. I went right for the
Yeah, that's my plan. I heard that some of people's issues like that. I wish they like there would have been an unrated cut. Now there is. So now like hopefully that'll at least some like hardcore horror fans, maybe they'll be more appreciative of this. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
yeah. And again, like I said, I understood the complaints, but it wasn't so overtly bad that I couldn't just have a good time with it. And I think that not to, and again, it doesn't excuse the clunky way stuff's handled, but it just wasn't so bad that I couldn't just like really let myself enjoy it and shut my brain off. And
Mhm.
you know, it just it tries to be deep, and it really doesn't have to be. It can just be a dumb Dracula movie, but it's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I look
um
forward to checking it out.
yeah, no, it is a good time. I certainly think it is one of those movies that and I know this maybe sounds like an excuse, but I think like this is a better movie to watch with like a really good crowd or friends
Mhm.
that are like getting into it. And like I didn't point this out, but like visually it is just amazing. Like it starts out with this like sweeping sort of like almost like, do you remember the intro to Tales from the Crypt,
Oh
where like
yeah.
they're going through the house and stuff? It does something similar, and I really like that. But it's just this big grandiose like style that is fun. And again, it's sort of as this movie isn't super over the top, but like it definitely takes some big swings, I'll just say.
Nice. My final title is another kind of unconventional one, but this is Time Life presents Ed Sullivan's Rock and Roll Classics.
Nice.
So every now and then I get lucky enough to check out some Time Life releases. So yes, the stuff you'll see on TV to call in on, but you can also order these online. This is just like a simple, fun collection of like great moments from the Ed Sullivan Show. You get like stuff with the Beatles, Lovin' Spoonful, Janis Joplin, the Byrds, Elvis, the Animals, the Beach Boys, and throughout these two sets, there are like 10 discs, I believe. So here's the first volume over here. So you have different kind of like subcategories on each disc, like one's like rock legends, and then there's like the legends of soul. There's teen idols and stuff. And then there's even a like a documentary on the history of rock and roll back here. And then moving on to the second volume in this set, you have more people like the Supremes and Rolling Stones. So you got more here, more moments, blue color scheme. So you have like the British Invasion and R&B greats, folk rock, the hits of 1965, 66, 67. So yeah, you have like a whole wider range of different things. And there's also even some specials on like some of the comedy at the time. So there's also like a different kind of like section for comedy, which is a lot of fun to see comedy from the 60s and stuff. So overall, if you are a fan of like this type of music, this is a really fun release. It also comes with a little booklet that kind of like gives you like an overview of some of like the moments from the show, and it's just a really cool set. It's like I said, it's available on Time Life, so it's not like as widely available as like most of these releases, but it is a really solid set if you're like a rock and roll fan. Like these, I've had a few of these sets in the past, and all of them, while they're not like new like Blu-ray transfers or anything, they're still DVD. They like hold up quite well. They put like a good quality product out, and there's a ton of special features on here. I didn't even like really get into like everything that's on here, but there are hours and hours of like bonus content and everything. So this will keep you very busy. And I also think this would probably make a good like present for like any rock and roll fan, like Christmas present, like as we get into that holiday season. So plan accordingly. But Ed Sullivan's Rock and Roll Classics, it's a pretty solid set overall. I recommend it.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Like I love stuff like that. I definitely do not know enough about Ed Sullivan, although I know he was like very important in that scene. So yeah, that sounds like that's a good place to start if you're a little bit more of a novice like I am. I mean, I know those bands, but like yeah.
There's a band called the Beatles. Let's start there, and then
Never heard of them. I don't know. No, that sounds awesome. Gosh. As always, this is kind of a nice sort of wide variety of pretty cool titles. And yeah, as always, we definitely appreciate you hanging out with us, and the obligatory like, subscribe. We're not doing a giveaway, but we always appreciate comments, letting us know what titles that we covered that you're really excited for, or what's some stuff that maybe should be on our radar that's come out recently. So we definitely want to hear from you. And as always, thanks.